Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you get your questions in and we give you our best efforts at an answer. And that format's been running for a lot of episodes now. And it's a popular one. So let's continue that roadshow and remind you how you can get involved and get your very own question answered.
Yep, oh so simple. Give us a call on 013 808 00035 or go to propertyhub.net/ask. Just come up with your question, send it over, and you'll soon have your answer.
Let's listen to our first question in from Stephen.
Hi lads, Stephen here in Lancaster. Great podcast. Thank you very much for all the advice that you give us. My question is about a house I'm booked in to view soon. It has 105 years remaining on the lease. So my idea was that if the house is otherwise good, I could still buy it and extend the lease probably relatively cheaply after 2 years. So my question is really, if a 105-year lease was the only negative about a property, would you still consider buying it? Thank you very much. Forward to hearing your thoughts.
Hey, Stephen, thanks for your question. And it's a good one because I'm sure other people have come across this before as well. You say a 105-year lease was the only negative, but I didn't really see it as a negative because 105 years is still a reasonable amount of time. Because it wasn't that long ago that people used to sell properties brand new with a 99-year lease. You don't see that these days, but it was pretty commonplace. So 105 years is still reasonable, and it won't really make an impact to your mortgageability and probably the value until it gets closer to 80 years. So I wouldn't see it as a negative because you've got plenty of time to address this. But if you want to address it, you can quite easily find out how much a lease extension would cost before you buy it. Now, what it costs today to what you're quoted in 5 years' time to what you're quoted in 10 years' time. And it will also be determined by how long you want to extend it by as well. Now, I don't believe that when you're looking at this property and assessing it, that 105-year lease will be hurting its valuation. I don't believe that you'll be getting that property for any cheaper than, say, if it was 150 years. It's possible, but I'd say unlikely. So while you are put off by the 105 years, I don't think a lot of people would be.
Yeah, I think when you get down to about 90, then people will start looking at it and maybe factoring into their decision the fact that they'll need to take some kind of action, which will cost money within the next 10 years, so probably during their period of ownership. But at 105 years, then you could own that property for a whole 25-year mortgage term, and it would still only just be getting to crunch time. So, of course, longer leases are always better. But I agree that 105 is still outside the range where it's going to start making any real difference to the value of the property. Okay, let's have a listen to our second question.
Hi, good evening, Rob and Rob. Hi, my name is Chika. I'm just calling to find out if there's any way I can evict my tenant and get possession of my house. It's just a property that I am looking to put into different use. Please, can you advise if there's any way to do this without suffering the additional 2 months gap before remarketing the property? Thank you.
Okay, we're always very polite to people who call Ask Rob and Rob because we want you to call in, and I'm not going to change that today, but I am going to give a little bit of tough love. So the first thing I'd say is that if you're investing in property, you really do need to understand how you can legally get possession of the property when you want to, and what that entails, and how long it takes, and what you need to have done in advance to allow you to do that. Because there are certain actions that you need to take in terms of protecting deposits and serving documents and things like that, that you must have done in order for you to legally take possession of a property. And from the question you're asking, it makes me a bit nervous that there might be other things you're not aware of that could end up tripping you up. So this is really important because it's not just a case of, I want the property back now, so you have to get out. In terms of actually getting this information, then there are lots of ways of doing so. So obviously, if you have a letting agent, then they should be taking care of this for you and sort of telling you how things work. The government's own website is pretty good, or you can join a landlords association. I like the Guild of Residential Landlords, but there are others, and they all have lots of information, and many of them will also have a helpline that you get access to as part of your membership, where you can phone up and get advice around this sort of area. And it's important because, of course, if you're in a situation where you've got a tenant who's not paying rent, for example, you want to make sure that you're resolving that situation as quickly as you can and not doing anything that inadvertently means that that will drag out for longer than it needs to. In this particular case, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you're asking, is there any way of doing this without having a 2-month gap before remarketing the property? Which I think means, is there any way of getting around giving them 2 months notice to leave the property? And the answer to that is no. No, of course not. And you should really be glad that that's not the case, because you wouldn't want to be on the other side of that if you were renting somewhere and the owner suddenly go, I want to do something else with this property now. You wouldn't be told that you had to get out the next day just because they've had a change of plans. And actually, I think 2 months is pretty short. And there are plans in the legislation that has been announced, but goodness knows if it will ever actually be enacted, that will be increased to, I believe, 4 months, but it might be 6. So that's the direct answer to your question, but I would definitely encourage you to take some of those other steps that I talked about to increase your knowledge of this whole area, because it really is so important to have a firm grasp of as an investor.
So thank you for your questions and thank you for listening. We'll be back on Thursday with the Property Podcast and, of course, back next week with Ask Rob and Rob. So until then, take care, have fun, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.